right. Our next episode of A Podcast, your host, Stephen Maxted, and Mylen Dunbar with NextGen Drainage on your side of things. So this is definitely going to be an ag focused, in case someone clicked here and wasn't sure on our title of the episode, but we're going to be talking some ag stuff and drainage today, ultimately. And Mylen, thank you for joining us. And why don't you tell the listener a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the business to kick us off?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Steve. Appreciate it. We do focus on tile drainage as a whole in the province of Manitoba. NextGen Drainage Solutions started about 11 years ago, based out of Mylen, Manitoba. We expanded into Saskatchewan, Alberta for several years, but kind of pulled back recently and to focus on the province as a whole. Tile drainage obviously has kind of taken off more so in this area in the last several years, just with obviously high moisture land, more saline spots showing up in guys' crops, right? Guys' fields getting worse. Unfortunately, just with the amount of work to do with ditches in the province, you can't get to them all, which affects some fields, obviously. So what we focus on is trying to come in from start to finish. We kind of take care of design work, survey work, install work, and then obviously the side of permitting as well. The process of it all can take time, dealing with downstream impacts, who we're going to affect downstream, where we're putting this water, and obviously government policies as well. We cannot enter a field without permit approvals from the province, which we try and obviously focus on ahead of time. So we're kind of all over the province, from the border of the United States all the way to Saskatchewan border, all the way up to north of Dauphin nowadays we go to, as far east as the White Shell. We don't like to tile into too many rocks, so if we can avoid those areas, we try to as well. So all over the area from, like I said, in the province of Manitoba. Obviously different areas bring in different projects. You're in the heavy clay area, more east of me, east of Souris in the Red River. My area, it's sandier ground, a little bit heavier soil in some areas, but more so soil you can deal with, right? Soil you can tile in. Obviously, some heavier clays cause for different issues, tighter spacing, different tile spacing in these systems. And then obviously a big thing too is where we're going to put that water and how we put that water in those places, right? So
awesome. No, that is a great recap. I'm going to ask some simple questions to go back on some stuff that you just said, just in case. So in case everyone or someone who's listening understood all of that, awesome. We'll continue right away. But for someone maybe who didn't, let me go back and just explain. So this is mostly focused on agricultural farmland that you're tiling, and it's to improve drainage because ditches, other ways of moving water around are not at capacity or good enough for that farmland.
Absolutely. So mostly high moisture land is what we're seeing benefit from in most areas. Areas where they can't, you can grow a crop, but that crop might not come up with 24 inches of rain like we've seen this year, right? In most areas. Those seeds drown out and those crops just don't come up, right? Installing tile 3 feet under the ground allows those roots to penetrate down, allowing them to grow, allowing yourself to get a crop every year, right? You have a 3 feet window there, right? Normal tile depths are about 3 feet, 3'2" on your laterals. Main sizes are obviously a little bit deeper, right? So you have a 3 feet window there of dry ground, right? Consistently, right? Obviously, like I say, different soils bring in different effects. You go into heavier clay where you tighten up spacing a little bit. Sandier ground, you can space things out, right? Which obviously saves that cost per acre, right? Basically what you kind of look for is high moisture land, saline land, so high saline land where the salts are pushing out of the ground. At a good year like we've seen this year to push those salts out is when we see 24 inches of rain, right? A lot of guys ask, well, how long is it going to take for my salts to exit the field? You tile it. I give it, on a decent spacing land, I give it anywhere from that 5 to 7 year turnaround on some decently saline land, right? Again, we do need the moisture to wash those salts out. Otherwise, those salts just sit on surface and cannot penetrate down, right? When it rains, what happens is it penetrates the salts. Obviously, if we don't have any impermeable ground, any hard pan ground, that's not going to allow those salts to go down. That's really the only thing that's going to stop that, right? So the more moisture in these areas of the salts, the better. Pushes those salts down, which then exits into that tile. exit the field, either exit through a gravity outlet system, or we do pile of lift stations nowadays, which those hold water in and then eventually pump out based off controlled substance, right? How much water comes in, those pumps kick in. How much water comes out, those pumps kick off, right? So
interesting. So it's almost like thinking more with my city brain right now. At first, no, listening to this, it'll be like a sump pump for your field.
Absolutely. Yeah, variable. They're all same thing. Absolutely, Steve. Yeah. They're all variable frequency driven pumps, right? So as water comes in, those pumps kick on. As water goes out, those pumps kick off, right? Again, that's different projects bring in different styles. Obviously, if we have a drain to work with or a surface drain to work with on the land, we try and push a gravity outlet to that. Gravity outlet means, you got a system that's ran on a 0.1% grade. That water's always kicking out of that system, which always puts yourself in a dry field, right? Pump outs, areas like that where you need a pump out system just means you don't have enough gravity drop for a system to push into a ditch, push into a ravine, push somewhere where you're actually gonna have to pump it out, right? Again, I could ramble on about lift stations all day long, but hydro, we deal with hydro directly for tie-ins on lift stations. And then obviously last year we brought in solar stations. So no hydro needed based off the sun. No batteries actually in these solars either. So sun's up, that system's pumping, right? And then they have actually backup generator hookups too. So if we have a wet year where we're seeing a week of rain, then guys usually put up a backup gen on that system just to make sure that the field's dry and they're not getting drowned out.
Right. Because we got rain, bunch of clouds. You're not getting that sun that you need. Exactly. Unfortunately, that's when you really need that power there.
What's going to happen? Who's getting the call? It's usually going to be me, right? So I tend to tell guys to have a backup generator there. That way, your system's going to be running, right? Obviously, in a good situation, Stephen, we do look for hydro. Again, we're putting in systems that are in the middle of nowhere sometimes, right? Where power's nearby, right? And cable costs, things like that. It adds up, right? So if we could put a system in where there's solar available, smaller systems, we are putting these solar systems in. But again, you could definitely look at phasing systems out, making things work on the client's end, right?
Absolutely. Oh, that's it. Hey, on the number side of things, so you said these things are 3 feet below soil.
Yeah.
Great. I might not be using the perfect words here, but they're 3 feet below that. And then how big are they?
Yeah, depending on the project itself and the acres we're doing. Anywhere we install everything up to 15-inch, we install ourselves with our plow. Once you get up to that 18-inch, it's all excavated in and hydroed in. So static pressure pulls those tiles together and then pressurize them in. So yeah, really based off every field, right? I mean, if you're doing a quarter section, you got 160 acres of tiled ground you're doing. You're probably into that 12-inch dual wall pipe by the time you're at your outlet point, right? As that system goes down, that system just gets upgraded by bigger mains, right? By the time you're at your gravity outlet, that's where your biggest main is, because that's where all your water's going to be slowly going. Exactly, right? Downstream, right? So yeah, anywhere the smallest we do is 4-inch. 4-inch pipe is your laterals for the most part, right? And then, like I said, we go anywhere up to 30-inch. We've done 18-inch last year, big pipe. But again, we tried to keep it to a minimum of 15 so we can plow it in for the most part, right? So yeah, different sizes, different. Every field's a little bit different. Like I tell guys nowadays is a lot of guys base it off cost per acre, right? You got 40 acres there. I'm gonna spend. We'll just throw a number out there: $1,500 an acre, right? What's my ROI, right? How long is that going to take to get that money back, right? That's really what you want to look at, the big picture, right? Different areas, you're targeting a field, say for 40 acres or the 160, your price per acre is probably going to be pretty good as long as you have a good gravity outlet shot there, right? The big thing is to pulling mains for distances just adds cost, right? So we put that into factor. And then obviously what we look at too is bigger projects. We tend guys to tell phase it out, right? If you're new to tile drainage and you want to see the benefit of it in the first couple of years, you got a quarter section, do 40 acres of it, right? And then next year you'll be calling me to do the rest of the 40 because it works, right? So it's one of those selling features that I tend to push to guys, right? Because it's you don't want to spend you don't want to spend $250,000 on the quarter section or $100,000 on the quarter section, and then you come around and you say, well, it's not working like I want. Well, do a little phase it out, right? Show yourself that, hey, tile drainage does work, and the neighbors just aren't lying to you about it. So get everybody on board in the same pace, right?
That's pretty funny. I'm just thinking, relative to what you mentioned there, that probably is the price point of installs in some of these projects, depending on what they need and stuff. But I bet that's probably hard to grasp with some of these guys, because it might be more than what they paid for the land years ago.
100%, absolutely, yeah. It is, and it is too. You get land prices nowadays that are, up to $8,000-$10,000 an acre, wherever you might be in the province, right? And then you get acres where they're $4,000 an acre, right? Where guys can put in $1,000 an acre and actually turn some land around, right? Land values are going through the roof, right? So guys are like, why not improve my land that I have now instead of trying to buy more land, right? Get what I have now productive, even if it's 40 acres out of that quarter. Hey, every year you're farming that 40 acres that you never farmed for years, and you're gaining that land back, right? And it's like I tell guys all the time, it's $1 in, $1 out, right? Your land's worth $4,000 an acre. You put in $1,500 an acre. Well, now your land's worth $5,500 an acre, right? It's just it's investment in your land, right? That's a big thing.
No, totally, and that's not to knock anything on the cost of the product. I was just thinking like reality check for some people when they're looking at that, being like,
oh yeah,
but that's just like you said, to relative day terms of cost of land to go with that. And okay, maybe a question on the side of ROI. What do you guys normally see, like on average, if someone puts? Of course, it depends on like the weather and
crops wise and whatever. Like it really depended on the crop itself, Stephen. For the most part, I tell guys, obviously, these areas that we're gaining back within the first couple of years, you're going to pay that land back pretty quick, right? Or that tile project pretty quick, right? Saline land, it cleans up within, like, say, 5 to 7 years, right? Some guys go in there and do 100 acres, and they're farming that 100 acres within 2 years, right? So it's really every field's a little bit different for ROI and what you're going to return on your investment. But different areas, different. I get a lot of guys nowadays that are breaking up land that they haven't farmed for since their grandpa hasn't farmed for 150 years, right? And now they're tiled it in the last 3 to 4 years, and they're farming it. They can't believe it, right? So it's just getting the like you said before, the older generation on board is the big thing too, right? Educating is huge, right? Like you said before, Stephen, bringing the land prices up from the 80s to now with the older generation is definitely hard, right? Because you're in their range of tiling an acre cost of what they bought the land for, right? So it's like, they can't put in numbers. Well, it's the unfortunate part of it all, right?
Yeah, it gets tricky because I totally get where their head's at on that one too, because I'd have a hard time thinking about investing in property that I've purchased or whatever for the same value for it. It would seem weird. But
it does seem weird, right? Absolutely. Like you gotta, I think I tell a lot of guys to put it in a big picture, right? But look at it 5 or 10 years down the road, right? Is your son going to be farming this field, right? What's your plan in the near future, right? Are you thinking that, hey, I'm 10 years, I'm going to turn the land around and I'm going to sell it? Well, then maybe you focus on smaller acres and get what you get back what you can, right? Don't try and do the whole farm, tiling it all, and then think 5 years down the road, well, I'm going to sell it all. Can I make my money back? I don't know, right? I don't have those answers, unfortunately. I hope you can, but again, I'm not going to put anything in contract for you. So,
no, absolutely. I think that that's definitely a great answer on that topic. How long? Oh, pardon me. I know you mentioned about like permits and stuff, and I'm definitely aware that specifically in our province, there's some red tape that exists.
Yeah, 100%.
In different parts of everyone's business, I think I make light of that, but aside from some of the delays that can happen there, the whole process, how long does it take on average, knowing that?
Yeah, on average, I give it that 2 to 4 month window, honestly, from a process standpoint of it all, to getting your permits in place, to having everything labeled out to where you need the install crew to come, right? Obviously, different areas bring in different permits. Highways, Manitoba highways can take time. They do their due diligence to make sure everything's in place, right? Downstream sign-offs are a big thing nowadays too, right? We don't come in and put in a project and think that the neighbors aren't going to flag us down for a piece of equipment in the area, right? It's going to happen, right? It's a plow that you never see driving around the fields very often. So 2 to 4 months, I give it. Obviously, like I said, I could turn projects within a month if everything's in place, right? The big thing is RMs, rural municipalities. If they have bylaws in place, we have to go through their bylaws ahead of time. Once we get RM approvals, then we head off to Manitoba Stewardship after that. Manitoba Stewardship's great to work with. We've worked with them for pretty consistently for 11 years. They've been great. And like I said before, the RMs, the province is coming around to it, right? 4 or 5 years ago, I think surface drainage was the big thing people were doing more and more, right? And now they're seeing that I'm losing acres out of all this surface drainage. I'm working around it. Why not just come in and tile it, right? So, like I said before, every project is a little bit different. Highways, Manitoba, rural municipalities is really our main focus on permitting side of things. As long as we get them in place within a good time frame, we can turn a project pretty quick.
Okay, very cool. So that's like overcompassing some other folks that are involved in like just the permit side of things there. So let's say you're on field, everything's like ready to go. How long does that process take for?
Depending on the quarter, depend on the field itself. I think the guys can usually do a quarter section, 160 acres, about 7 days total, right? Yeah, 7 days total. That's kind of getting our flag team in there, things flagged out. We meet the client in field before we go over anything and before we put the plow on the field to make sure they're happy with everything. Big project, big numbers. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page, right? Plowing wise, 7 days, 160 acres, I give it. Obviously, every project's a little bit different. If we're targeting, 60 acres on a whole section and you're pulling big mains across the whole section, it does take more time, right? Bigger mains take more time. Smaller systems can take more time than bigger systems. If you have a full section and you got your main lines on the bottom end of the section and all your laterals are running for a straight mile, well, that's a good project, right? You could do those projects in a little bit quicker time frame, right? So I'm very project efficient, and based off what the crew sees, we normally run two plows, in each bigger project field if we can. And in smaller projects, we just tend to stick with one plow. 2 crews total for our company right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And within doing these projects, obviously, crops are starting to come off now. Is this starting to be busy season?
This is fall's our busy season. This next 3.5, hopefully 4 months, we'll say. If we have like a late winter here, which I usually pray for on my end. This is our big busy season right now. We don't really slow down too much midsummer. Springtime, we tend to put in 5 to 1,000 acres. If we can get more in, perfect. And then we try to fix the guys in the summers. Tend to do summer mains, obviously in summers. So get in there, get some main lines done, and in that sense, you can come in fall and just put in laterals, right? And then obviously we got into RM roads. I'll pitch about that a little bit later too, Steve. But we do that for frost boils as well. So focusing on cleaning up these rural municipality roads that haven't been touched in years, unfortunately, with some areas. So we're busy now. We're getting into our fall crops, barley crops, wheat crops are coming off. The guys are plowing right now and probably won't stop till we see some frost on the ground, which is hopefully mid-December. This is what I'm praying for here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go along with that too.
We don't need winter anytime soon, do we? So.
No, definitely not. Although, I mean, some mornings, I don't know, maybe in a baby about it in the fall, but I'm like, oh, it's the opposite. Just talking today.
Some days you don't know if you need a sweater or a jacket or fall comes around.
And the AC are on the same day.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you get back in the truck. So
I know that. Yeah. So and it's crunch time for us. Like you say, wheat, barley crops are off in this area. Wheat's coming off slowly, and then we just base our schedule off crops and kind of areas for the most part. Try not to jump the guys too much around so they can have a little bit of life as well.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely interesting. Like timing that this will be like a focus for you guys. Do you ever do spring installs?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, actually done. We try and push for spring installs on a lot of guys if we can. Spring's challenging. This spring was very challenging. We had obviously wet conditions to deal with in the area with 10 to 15 inches of rain pouring down and everything. So yeah, spring work, from my end of things, I enjoy spring work. Some farmers, obviously different areas, different crops to get in early, right? That's, if you can get in there in spring and put it in the system, and that system's going to work that year, right? That's what I always try and tell guys, right? If you're putting in a later crop, do it this spring, get it done, and that way you're going to have a crop there this year, right? So you're not going to fight with it. If you get 14 inches of rain come in the middle of summer or whatever might happen, we don't know what's going to happen. Hey, your crop's there, right? You don't have an issue, right? So that's a big thing. Yeah. Again, though, Steve, like I said, I know how I've dealt with farmers for years. I know how it is. They want to get in the field, get the crop in, which I expect them to do that and focus on that. So that's the window of if we can have a little bit of a month window in spring and the time frames there to do so, then we definitely punch to get some tile on the ground.
Interesting. I didn't know. I was thinking it would probably definitely be as you're talking about it. I'm like, okay, fall's probably the place to be, but maybe there's opportunity that way to
absolutely spring guys. We get a lot of guys too now that this year was a great example. Didn't get the crop in, right? Didn't get the crop in the ground. We called us and said, you know what, I didn't get the crop in. So clean it up right now, right? Get her done. So hate seeing it. Hate seeing guys have issues with not getting crop in. But again, you can come in there in a good time frame. We have the time to do so. At least you're getting it cleaned up, right?
Yeah, and probably, I mean, unfortunately for them, like you're talking about, but it allows you guys to have more time, for the project, regardless. It's not saying like you're rushing.
Right, you're not absolutely you're not rush, right? Absolutely, you can plan it out perfectly and have the guys get there in a good time frame. It's not like you need to go there tomorrow, but if they're going to plant some fall rye or something, then you got to get in there pretty quick.
Oh, it's like the story of the Chinese farmer, right? One thing goes bad, maybe something's going good there too. So hopefully it helps them out for, like you're saying, winter wheat, fall rye, whatever that might be, get in. Hopefully use that to their advantage come
absolutely
next season.
Come next season, right?
How long does this stuff last for?
Our tile manufacturers ADS, Advanced Drainage Systems. They put a 50-year warranty on the tile itself once it's in the ground. Now I've pulled in systems up in Russell area, up in Pile Mound area that we pulled clay systems out. So old clay runs that have been installed years ago. Again, I don't give it 1,000 years that these systems are going to last, but I definitely give it that 10 to 15 year without any issue, right? The first issue you're going to see if there's any issue is potentially surface water on surface due to the fact that something either jammed in one of the tile runs, rock fell over top of the tile runs, which then pushes that water to surface, right? That's going to happen after the first year, right? That's what I always tend to tell guys. Unless something got into that tile and we're not looking, there's really should be no issue there, right? Our installers have been doing projects for several years together, so they definitely are very meticulous at what they do. 50-year warranty on on the tile, and then we put a year warranty on our marksmanship as well, right? So if you have an issue in that first year, we come out, we repair it, make sure everything's good in that sense. So I know ADS, they're looking to put a 100-year warranty on the tile itself. Usually the only really thing that's degrading the tile is UV rays, right? You're 3 feet in ground. No, if sun's getting to that 3 feet down ground, we've got other issues, I think.
Yeah, the world might be over.
Right.
At that point. But no, I was just curious. I actually had no idea how long that was.
Yeah, so we put in good, like I said, we put in good systems. We've never really had too many issues. Obviously, you get some issues in fields where there is wet spots, high pressure lines. When I say that, what happens is if there's so much water coming into a lateral, and that lateral is forcing into a main line, what could happen is so much pressure pops that lateral out of that main line.
Okay.
Pops it out of that main line, and then what happens is that water comes directly to surface, right? Just shows you how much water is 3 feet below ground, right? So we've had that happen several times actually. So this year has been a great example of it. We did a couple projects in that Portage area this year where so much water in there. It was actually spring projects to while we talk about spring, and yeah, the amount of spring moisture that we've seen there definitely popped some of those laterals out just with the amount of pressure coming in there. So you think your jet tub pushes a lot of pressure, well, you'd be surprised what water can do downhole once it finds that least resistant path, right? Might take that first little bit, but least path of resistance finally finds that tile, and then she's all the tile's problem after that, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, it totally makes sense. I just would have never thought about that being a thing that
Absolutely.
could happen, right? With like plumbing pressure.
Yeah, pressure, anything like that, right? And then
yesterday, it's literally just like kaboom on it. So
pop on it, right? The big thing too we look at is narrow slot sock pipe, right? So what happens is if we're under a certain percentage of clay, sand, or silt, we run sock pipe around that tile, right? So 4-inch tile, socked, all the main lines are all socked, right? The big thing with that is not allowing sand or silt to get in the tile.
Right.
What happens there is that you have an issue with tile, right? The system will back up and you'd have an incomplete system that doesn't run, right? So a big thing is looking at soils, right? Making sure obviously your spacing's correct, and then obviously making sure that, hey, if you have a heavy sand or silt percentage in this field, we're going to sock it because we don't want to come back in 25 or 30 years and say this system is blocked up. What's the reason behind it? Well, NextGen did this system. No, we don't do that. We make sure that things are done properly. Soil sampling is huge nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Reconnaissance soil mapping, we look at it obviously in general, but for the most part, we try to get a decent soil sample if we can. For the most areas, we know obviously with working in the areas, what we've seen for soils. And then obviously too, there's different areas, heavy clay. What can actually happen is the heavy clay can actually cause a pore around the narrow slot tile. So it actually can cover up those holes too, right? So there's different things, different fields. Like I said before, every field's a little bit different. So we try and look at it in a whole different graph kind of.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely makes sense from like understand there, but like sock, I didn't even know there was a thing to sock.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Big thing, sock and narrow slot pipe. There's wide slot pipe too. Use that in heavier clays. Obviously, like I said before, if you have heavier clays, you're tightening up your spacing, right? Normal clays, normal soils, we're sticking around that 50 feet mark around my area, Pile Mountain area. Heavier clays, you can go up to 40, 30-foot spacings, right? Really depends on the soil itself, right? And then, like I said before, saline areas, where we're trying to actually clean up these saline areas in a good time frame, not a year or two, but 5 to 7 years down the road. We look to tighten up these areas too, right? 50 foot, we've noticed in the last 4 to 5 years, 50-foot spacing just doesn't clean up these high saline areas. You might be driving on the highway and you see a white patch in the edge of the field. Do you think it's snow? Probably just salt, right? Areas like that where you think it's very heavy saline, porous areas, right? Try and focus on those areas a little bit heavier, right? Tighten up spacings in these areas and then allowing that moisture to push out those salts, right? That's really what we want to see there.
Okay, this might sound like a silly question for someone who did work there, but I've seen more of the salt thing in like specific areas of Saskatchewan, and I lived out there and done different areas. But in the Manitoba side, do we see the salt here?
Yeah, we do. We're seeing it more and more, to be honest with you. Just with I don't know how to say it's not maintaining ditches properly in some areas, right? RMs just can't get to all these ditches to maintain them all, unfortunately, right? Highways, same kind of deal, right? What happens there is water sits in the ditch. Where's that water go? Underneath into the field, right? Guys tend to work that field a little bit if they can to get the salts. What happens there? Air to surface, more salt to surface, right? Most of the time. So yeah, we are seeing more and more saline spots in the province. Yeah, absolutely.
And is it in any like specific area that you're seeing this more, just because of the
really. I mean, definitely the heavier clay ground, not as much. I would say more so our area, Pile Mountain area. There's definitely some salts. You go around that St. Francis, Winnipeg area. It's more moisture, high moisture table, right? Flat land. Yeah. Same with Beausejour out that area where it's just flat, right? You got no grade, right? So you get 6 or 8 inches of rain and all your pockets are full, right? That water just goes nowhere.
How about the Inner Lake? Moving up to that way.
Yeah, we do a little bit out there, not as much. Yeah, I think down the road it will come. Same with the Red River Valley. Down the road, I think, right, same kind of deal. Definitely some permitted issues coming down the run there. But again, new areas, guys need to see that you put the tile in. One new farmer needs to come in and do a little system, and then everybody else sees that, hey, it works, right? So that's a big thing nowadays too. It's getting educated, right? Getting people on board.
Interesting. What's I guess on that avenue too, is that like a strategy for business? Try to get one person in there, you're just kind of like, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you expand a business, right? Nowadays is get people on board in new areas. That I find I love to visit new areas and get people on board if I can. You get one guy on board and 3 farmers down the road says, well, this guy can farm this whole 50 acres that he wasn't farming for 40 years. What did he do, right? Right. You put a NextGen Drainage Solutions sign on the edge of the field. Well, before you know it, you're getting calls left and right. Right. So yeah, new areas are definitely my forte. If I can step in new areas and get people on board, I definitely I love doing that, and that's my key for the future is expand anywhere you can in the province, right, as much as you can.
Very cool to hear. Now, what's I guess in terms of like flood years and stuff like that, you mentioned kind of like Red River Valley. I'm thinking these flatter spots. Like, what happens when it's like major flood? Are these still effective, or is it just kind of?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the area. Obviously, if you have a major flood, some systems just can't hold up to it, right? We try and upsize our mains to allow that to happen, right? If you get 10 inches of rain, those mains are able to hold that moisture, right? In saying that, different fields bring in different mains, right? But yeah, I mean, if you're going to see a 20 to 30 inch flood in a year, it's going to be there's definitely going to be issues with the tile itself. But if it can keep up and allow that moisture to get down to the tile, it's going to drain, right? It just takes more time, right?
Right. And how about something that we talked about before here? I know we mentioned it a little bit, but the pump out stations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure that we covered those well enough there on like in terms of like what do those really look like? Is it like a catchment area at the end of everything?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's a big culvert that you put on the edge of the field pretty well that holds that water, right? And then obviously has a VFD, variable frequency driven pump inside that 14 feet tank, whatever it might be, right? Every tank's a little bit different. Depends how much depth you need on the edge of field, right? Or wherever that pump might be. So yeah, pump out systems. Anywhere from that, 1 horsepower to 15 horsepower. We put in double 15 horsepower pumps where you got a whole section coming to one little system, right? And then, like I mentioned before, last year we brought in solar systems that have really kind of taken off with smaller systems in the area. Smaller projects, obviously, but you don't have to pull in hydro for long miles of distance. This way you can kind of focus on the project as a whole. If you're in the middle of nowhere and you can't get power there, there's no hydro nearby, we look for solar, right? Obviously what we really look for is a gravity shot outlet where we're not having to put any lift station, right? Any maintaining of lift station. Again, we have new technology that came in effect to about a couple of years ago, I guess now, but remote monitoring, right? So you can really just pull up your phone, see if your pump's kicked in, see what kind of water's pumped out every day, right? So farmers can go on a holiday or go wherever they want to go, check a field. If they can't get to the field, well, you have it on your phone, right? Basically tells you what's pumped in a day, gives you a graph of what's coming in on water, right? Horsepower gives you all your electrical stuff as well, right? So really handy for the guys that don't like leaving the house and can see it on an app, right? So
yeah,
it's pretty handy. But yeah, pump outs. Big thing nowadays too is government grant programs, right? There's different government grant programs that have come into place in the last several years with tile drainage coming more actively in the province, right? So we look for any subsidies of grants we can take into guys too. This is what the government wants to see. We're holding back water in these lift stations, right? And evaluating the whole system, not just allowing that water to freely run out, right? So yeah, every system, every project's a little different. Like I said before, pump outs are big nowadays. We do a lot of projects with decent sized pump out systems in it. Again, if we have a drain to work with there or a ditch to work with, we definitely shoot for that for start offs.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay, wait. I was thinking something more residential all of a sudden here, but like, do you guys ever do random projects where it's like, hey, I want to drain my yard a little bit better?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've done it all, to be honest with you. We brought up a boot from the States 4 or 5 years ago, I guess now. So it's a customizable boot. We do a lot of seed yards. So what happened? Yeah, like heavy traffic areas, right, where semis are coming in and coming out. We tend to come in there with this boot, and what that is it's a boot that you can fill gravel in as it plows. So what that is it's a putting in 4-inch pipe, 3 feet below ground normally, sometimes higher depending on the gravel seam itself. And then what happens is the crew fills in gravel in the boot, which then wraps around that tile. So you're actually not putting that compacted stuff back in and allowing that surface water to get down a little easier, right? So yeah, we've done a lot of seed yards, and then like I mentioned before too, RM roads. Trying to clean up frost blows on these RM roads. We bring in that boot and socked 4-inch tile, try and get that water running either to a ditch, ravine, wherever that might be, right? So yeah, seed yards, guys, heavy traffic yards where guys, you're sinking down every 4 feet. You come in there, you throw some tile in there, punch that water to a station or a lift station if need be, and you have a dry yard that guys can drive on and not having to pull them on every day, right?
No, I mean, that's definitely a major thing. I mean, we're even pulling some yards springtime, just getting out and trying to manage walking through it.
Absolutely, right. So yeah, it's big on seed yards. Again, I think down the line, hopefully, I say this with a little bit of confidence that highways will get involved a little bit of tile, right? Okay. We've done some tours down the States where they tile, mall parking lots before things come in place, right? Edges of highways to avoid culvert sinking in the future, right? You notice along a lot of highways nowadays where old culverts either ruptured up, pushed up, or sunk down, right? Absolutely, right? So situations like that, my tile brain goes to why don't we tile this and get this cleaned up the proper way, right? So down the line, I hope we get in with a little bit of highways too. Would be my next step.
Do you think that would like help resolve a lot of the issues that we do have with highways up here?
I tend to think so. I mean, what you see in those culverts is moisture either pushing up from above it, right, or below it, right? So get that water moving elsewhere. Maybe put some geotech below it just to double it up a little bit, right? Get that. The big thing nowadays is just getting that water moving, right? And you see, like you see it driving down the highway nowadays too, right? A big slump in the road or a big sink in the road. Well, what's underneath it? Culvert most days, right? So
interesting.
My tile brain goes, why don't I tile that? Every time I hit a bump on the road, I look back and what was that, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting perspective to have, and especially from what you just said there about like going to, traveling to do research, basically what I heard you say, away to learn different ways of doing things. And I think there's definitely lots of lessons to be learned from other areas, because it's pretty obvious when we do cross, border south of us, certain roads are, vastly improved. And I'm not knocking anyone with that. It's notable by everyone, obviously, shout out to Highway 75. I think that was pretty chewed up, but there's lots of, that's the main vein bringing goods and, back and forth.
Yeah, it's a busy highway, right? Like you said. I think down the road, hopefully we could venture into that neighborhood where, you can get in there before all these highway guys get in there and clean up some of the areas ahead of time, right? So that's where my
I mean, but it's also like directly next to the river the whole way. So it makes sense in my mind too, to say, hey, that's probably a heavy moisture area. Again, not an expert on roads or drainage, but it's like, hey, like that, exactly what you said there, that could be a solution, for them or to some degree near there.
It's coming down, like I say. I think everybody's kind of come on board with tile drainage. Obviously, it take a lot of educating, getting people on board with putting plastic pipes in the ground, right? That's what the big question is what the cost is, what my ROI is, and what am I going to grow out of this, right? The big thing nowadays, right? So yeah, the big picture, I look at the big picture on years down the road where I think we're going to turn a lot of good land or terrible land into good land here, right? And eventually, hopefully, have active progressive farmers consistently doing it every year, right? Instead of having guys go and try and buy land for $6,000-7,000 an acre, turn around and improve your land that you have for $15 or $1,000 or whatever might be an acre. It really depended on the cost of it all. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just kind of recapping what we heard there too is like there's big focus in ag, but there might be other use cases for this your product and services in the future for either highways, municipalities. Like there's definitely folks that should be reaching out and touching base with you guys on
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of utility stuff too. So plow and fiber. We got into that there about 3 years ago. Same thing. Fiber optic lines is a big thing nowadays in the area, right?
Yeah.
We can third-party contract with companies. We tend to do so as well. Trying to fill that void of summer up, right? Guys like to keep busy, so do I. So if we can make sure that they're busy all year round, then that's what we stick for.
Awesome. Yeah. Coming into fall here, I know you said it's gonna be busy, but then over winter and stuff, you sound like you guys do some like traveling, trying to learn, like educating stuff there. Probably like a bit of a trade show circuit. Do you guys have anything planned coming into fall where you guys are going to be at different trade shows already?
Absolutely,
so
yeah, absolutely. We are a trade show company for sure. We tend to do egg days. Obviously, is our big one in Brandon, January 17th, 21st, I think it is. Crop Connect, couple other ones in the province that we do. Beaujeu has a good one. But yeah, mostly we try to educate ourselves over the wintertime. I usually try to get myself lined up for spring with sales, and then obviously tend to attend as many ag shows in the province as we can for the most part, and then making sure everybody's up to date on tile drainage designers. We have designers that are in place all winter. Any certificates that they might need or I might need, we make sure that we update, educate, and do some touring and traveling while we can to learn more, right? So
very cool. That's awesome. How can folks get a hold of you? I mean, we'll have a list underneath here, but just to say it out loud, I know you guys are heavy on like other social media platforms. Where can folks all find you guys?
Absolutely, yeah. We're on NextGen Drainage Solutions is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Then obviously we have a YouTube channel as well. I am pretty heavy on Twitter. I think my name is just Mylen Dunbar on Twitter, I want to say. So I'm actively on there quite a bit. I enjoy Twitter quite oftenly. And then obviously our website, nextgendrainage.solutions.com, I believe it is.
Yes.
On there we have an inquiry form. What you can do there is go online, inquire about a field you're looking at doing. Our sales side will reach out to you and kind of start that process. So yeah, we're on all social medias. My numbers, I'm sure all over the province by now. So if anybody wants to contact me, they can find it pretty quick nowadays.
Awesome. I think that's awesome. And thanks for making time to be on today. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention about?
No, absolutely. No, I just appreciate your time, Steve. And I really enjoy the podcast.
No, that's awesome. Thanks for making time again. And we look forward to following your journey and sharing the story for the ag community and other parts of industries that might be involved with you guys. So thanks again for being here today, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Appreciate it.